Hey friends, happy Monday to all of you. And obviously we're going to talk about hot news today, but my wife and I will film a formal thank you video as soon as our son gets out of the hospital, but I can't start this video without acknowledging the sheer generosity that the entire tech community and anybody else who randomly discovered our family showed this weekend. And I released our announcement video on Friday thinking that we would get some support, enough to get through the next couple months and be able to figure things out. But you guys have literally blown away every single expectation that I could have possibly had and changed our lives in a few short days. And my wife and I will talk more as soon as our son gets out of the hospital. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about and you're just here for hot news, check out the video that we released on Friday, me and my wife announcing that we have to leave South Africa in order to seek emergency medical treatment for our son. And so there's a whole lot of complications involved in that. And our son was supposed to be released from the hospital on Saturday, was the initial thought. But then it's now been extended to potentially the end of this week. So we're still waiting for him to get out. And then as soon as he's out, the doctors here have told us that get him stable, stay for 2 weeks to make sure he's okay, and then get out and go find help in the United States. So that's the current state of things. That's how everything is. If you want to support us on our journey, all of the links for how to do that are down below. And we're just incredibly thankful that when I thought I was just making a statement to our audience, the rest of everybody in the entire world stepped in, and we've had over 3,000 people support us. And it's been a very difficult and emotional weekend because of that. So thank you so much. And with that being said, let's get into the hot news. Okay, so first up, we have some good news about Apple, which depending on how you're looking at it, it is good news. It might be an indication of some favoritism by the US government towards Apple regarding certain tariffs. However, it does help more than just Apple, because it was announced that Friday, US trade regulators had approved 10 of the 15 different tariff exemptions that Apple had wanted for producing their products. And if you remember previously, President Trump has stated that they weren't going to give any exemptions to Apple for producing their stuff in China or the United States, and that they would have to be treated like the rest of the companies. But that is clearly not what has happened. So the US government has made it so that Apple is not going to pay those extra percentages that are being levied against things coming in from China. But with that announcement, there also came the announcement that certain taxes and levies on things that apply to PC components as well as gaming components can actually be relieved from the levy as well. Specifically, certain exemptions were applied to partial circuit board and graphics cards. So it's actually some tremendously good news that came out on Friday. Apple appears to have gotten some relief from the extra tariffs that might have been applied, but then also coinciding with that, the computer gaming industry is actually going to do okay, and Apple kind of helping us out. So in case you've been saving up for that next tech purchase, or you're going to be one of the elite few who can afford a $6,000 starting price for the Mac Pro, you don't have to save any more than what you did before. So good news, I suppose. And then also, speaking of companies getting some reprieve, it's a bad segue. Anyway, CXL, which is also known as Computer Express Link Consortium. This is a super group of tech companies such as Intel, Facebook, Google, all coming together to create a new interface for computers similar to PCI Express. Well, they have officially incorporated as a company, so that's going to be moving forward. And I also believe that we reported in a previous hot news that NVIDIA and AMD have joined the consortium, so that this is not just an Intel effort going forward, but there's a bunch of different tech companies actually working to support this new interconnect standard on computers. But speaking of Intel stuff, we also have some benchmarks leaked of the i9-10980XE, the 18-core 36-thread CPU with the Geekbench score showing that it may potentially have a maximum boost clock of 4.7 gigahertz, which is a 300 megahertz increase over the 9980XE. So could expect some decent performance, and as Intel has previously stated, the new Cascade Lake X CPU should have double the value of the previous 9900 generation. So that should be pretty decent. And then speaking of decent, in case you want your own customized version of a graphics card, which, I mean, a lot of people would, Galax has apparently released an RTX 2060 Super with a clear shroud dubbed Star that another company, Tmall, has joined in on to produce vinyl skins for, so that you can actually have whatever design you want on your graphics card pretty easily. They have some pre-established designs that you can choose from, a lot of them being more like weeby in nature, if that's how you want to put it. But you can also do whatever you want. And if Galax potentially releases the specifications, you might be able to print your own at home. And then on Friday, Phanteks announced that they're going to be selling their P400A mesh front panel separately. So anybody who wants to upgrade a previous P400 to have the mesh front, you can now purchase that separately from the company. And then there's also a report that came in on Zero's 2020 DSR Black Forest Edition motorcycle. It's actually going to be coming to the US, even though it was previously a European only model. And it has quite a few things that are pretty great about it, such as starting at $11,000 and having an 82-mile tank on an all-electric motorcycle. I'm quite excited for that. I'm not sure if I'll actually ever pick one up, but electric motorcycles that are relatively affordable. $11,000 isn't cheap for a vehicle, but considering that some of the higher end motorcycles go for in the $20,000 to $30,000 range, having a sustainable bike would be quite cool. And then Honda announced its first hybrid SUV for the US market with its 2020 CR-V. They're claiming that it's going to have 15% better battery life than the regular one, but they're not giving out any official figures just yet. But electric cars and hybrid cars, they're rolling out quite quickly. But also things are rolling out that are also strange. Starbucks in Japan rolled out a way to pay for coffee with a pen. It's being labeled the Starbucks Touch. You spend 4,000 yen on the pen, you get 1,000 yen in Starbucks credit, and then you just tap the pen to get free Starbucks with the money that you loaded on it. It's not free. Anyways, it's weird. You're gonna lose it. Why would you do this? I don't understand. Who needs a pen to pay for things? I don't get it. But what we did get is new specifications for Call of Duty Modern Warfare, and specifically the PC specs that's going to be required to run it at minimum and recommended settings. You can see them on the screen right now. It actually won't take too much. GTX 970 is the recommended setting, so a pretty accessible game for most if you're on the PC. Speaking of PC, politically correct, energy efficiency, Ikea, they are projecting that they are going to be energy positive by 2020, producing more energy than they consume, and they hope to be climate positive by 2030. Obviously, the definition of what climate positive is a bit ambiguous right now, but having a surplus of energy is quite good for a large retailer. I'm proud of them. Good job, Ikea. Thanks, Sweden. And then Facebook announced that with regards to its Libra cryptocurrency that they're going to be rolling out, they kind of gave a breakdown on the fiat currencies that are currently used to back the cryptocurrency, and they're stating that 50% is going to be coming from the US dollar, 18% from the euro, 14% from the yen, 11% from the British pound, and 7% from the Singapore dollar. So it's not every country in the world getting behind Facebook's Libra cryptocurrency, and it still seems to be US dominated, which makes sense because Facebook is a US company, but there is some massive support from various governments and their official currencies to make it happen. And then last week in Hot News, we reported on how Uber was actually going to start limiting its drivers in New York City due to some regulations passed by the New York City mayor regarding ride-sharing apps. However, it also came out recently that Uber isn't going to just let that happen, even though they are implementing it to comply with the law. They are suing New York City in return to potentially alleviate some of these regulations, citing that it's not helpful for their drivers and it's not helpful for the business, and it's based on fear-mongering and not necessarily actual real statistics. But you want to know a real statistic? Australia participated in the Area 51 raid on Friday, and they decided, hey, this alien tech's really good. We're going to partner with NASA to go to the moon and Mars. We're going to give $150 million over the next 5 years to be invested in what the US is doing to go to the stars or the exo areas. It's because of the aliens. I'm making that part up, but the $150 million deal is real. And then we didn't report on this in hot news, but on Friday, YouTube made some really dumb changes with regards to the YouTube verification system. They sent out emails to a bunch of verified creators saying that their verified checkmark is going to be removed, and a lot of big creators such as Bitwit and Barnacules Nerdgasm with hundreds of thousands, if not millions of subscribers, were going to lose their verified tick due to YouTube's new regulations of having to be authentic and prominent. We got an email stating that our tick would remain, which makes me confused because we are not more prominent or authentic than the people who had them removed. So it just appeared that YouTube was like, hey, throw some like candies at the wall and see what sticks, and those creators we remove it from. But it also came out that the CEO of YouTube realized that that was a bad decision, and everybody who is currently verified will still retain their verification badge, and then they'll implement the new structure moving forward, which was the right thing to do to begin with. Why would you remove it? It would be like you taking my 100,000 subscriber plaque away. Just because, oh, now the requirement for that is 200,000, so you just suck it up, you don't deserve it. But you know what Google deserves? The label of being the most supreme quantum people in the world, or at least that's what they're claiming with their new 53-qubit quantum computer, which has allowed them to obtain quantum supremacy, which has allowed them to solve a problem that no classical computer could solve in any given lifetime. So great job, Google. I appreciate you having a 53-qubit machine, even though IBM announced theirs last week. Fantastic. And you know what else was announced? OnePlus announced that Android 10 is coming to the OnePlus 7 and OnePlus 7 Pro, being one of the very first Android phones that are supporting the brand new operating system outside of Google's Pixel ecosystem. Speaking of Google Pixel, it's got revealed what the colors are going to be called. You've got just black, clearly white, and oh so orange, which is kind of reminiscent of the purplish that's on the 3A XL, making it fun, making it quirky, oh so orange. And I'm oh so not wanting to have another music streaming service, but Amazon says they don't care because they're rolling out Amazon Music HD for higher quality music streaming and up to Ultra HD in certain instances. It's cheaper for Prime members, but it's not necessarily included in Prime subscriptions. But in case you want another music streaming service, there you go. And here we go, talking about the potential terrifying future that is deepfake videos, with one professor from the University of South Carolina, who is a professor of computer science, has said that he thinks that deepfakes will become perfectly real in 6 to 12 months. Currently, deepfakes are when you take a video, you splice it onto somebody else's face, and then you become that person in the video. However, there's tons of artifacts and like glitches, so you can tell something's not quite right. Lighting has to be matched up perfectly. So there's ways to tell it's been doctored with, but the USC professor stating that it's not going to happen, that you're going to be able to tell it in about 6 months to a year, which obviously is a great thing considering the current upcoming election, being able to have your political opponent say something that they didn't ever say, but being able to show it to enough people and then retracting it after the damage is already done. It's politics, man. It's going to get great. Obviously, that's a huge joke. And what would be a huge joke is if I continued this episode of Hot News. So I'm going to end it there. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Thank you again from the bottom of my heart for supporting my family in this difficult season of having to move back to the US and seeking medical care for our son. You've changed our lives, and I feel like my platitudes aren't good enough to communicate just how deeply appreciated everything is. So I'm going to end everything there. I've been Brett with the UFD Tech Channel. Hit the like button if you enjoyed it. Get subscribed if you want to. I'm out of here. Okay, put on your hot news face, Brett. It's time to go on. I think there's a bird in that area. Can you? That's way too loud for it to be outside. They're all on the climate hype right now. That Greta, what's her name? Cut this part.